Hey everyone, welcome to the Adrian Tan Show. This is my podcast where I have deep conversations with the people who are enabling organizations to become ready for the future of work. My guests include the mindfulness coach, the folks behind Singapore's most popular investment app, and many more. They all have one thing in common, and that is to help level up your organizations through your people. My guest today is the CEO of Institute for Human Resource Professionals, or IHRP, since 2017. IHRP's mission is to professionalize and strengthen HR practice in Singapore. Through a range of national HR programs such as the IHRP Certification, Human Capital Diagnostic Tool, and IHRP Knowledge Partner Program, it sets the HR standards of excellence, develop HR as a strategic enabler of business and workforce transformation, as well as foster a vibrant HR services ecosystem to drive innovation and change. He has over 30 years of experience in regional, global HR and general management roles in both public and private sector, having led initiative for MNCs spanning 3 continents, 30 countries and teams of around 9,000 people. He has also led acquisition, transformational change and partnered with key executives to develop and deploy business strategies during periods of rapid growth or cyclical downturns across mature and developing markets. He is passionate about untapping the value that good HR practices can bring to organizations. Please welcome Mayank Parekh. Welcome, Mayank. Thanks for coming on to the show.
Thank you, Adrian. Thanks for having me.
So tell us, what is IHRP and what problem is it trying to solve?
IHRP really is a professional HR professional body. And the question you might have is that, but we already have a HR professional body, SHRI. So why was there a need to
You're
to
jumping
form
ahead. Yes,
a
please.
second
Let's
one, right?
on
Yeah.
that.
I think, yeah, certainly, we have the objective as well to uplift the HR profession. But the way kind of we go about doing it is slightly different, right, from SHRI. Well, we are a tripartite organization, so we are formed by the tripartite partners in Singapore, Ministry of Manpower, NTUC, and SNAF, and we are funded by the tripartite organizations. And whereas SHRI is a membership-based association, and they've got their own constitution, right? So very different in terms of makeup, but like I said, we have very similar objectives. Just the way we do it, we go about achieving those objectives are different. So what we do is we are a standards and certification body, right? So just like accountancy has a set of standards, the Singapore Accountancy Commission sets standards for the accountancy profession, and just like standards are set for other professions, the lawyers, the doctors, the teachers even. I think HR professionals need also to have standards, and the tripartite partners felt that this needed to be an independent body to set those standards, and then based on those standards to run a series of certification programs. So I think that's kind of the difference between IHRP and SHRI. So what we do is we have our certification programs, and increasingly we are also looking at how we can help HR professionals make an impact in organizations. Because at the end of the day, certification is something that HR professionals take away themselves individually. It benchmarks them against a standard, a national standard. But whether or not that level of competency translates into good and better HR practices in companies, it's something that certainly we need to kind of help HR professionals to do that as well. So increasingly our next phase of development is to look at how we can facilitate some of the workforce transformation efforts that we need to make in Singapore, right? Our demographics, the vulnerability of our businesses to transformation, to disruptions, particularly post-COVID, is going to make life quite difficult actually for companies, many companies out there, particularly smaller companies. So how can HR professionals assist, provide good support, and what good practices, what good tools, processes can we make available to companies out there, and how do we leverage the strength of the community, because there are good things going on in different in bigger companies. There are good things going on even in smaller companies. There are good things going on in HR tech, right? And you write a lot about that, Adrian. I'm a fan of your blog. So I think, how do we then bring those practices to help HR professionals? So I think that's kind of increasingly the things that IHRP is beginning to focus on.
Thanks for the explanation. So if I were to put it in a different context, so I would imagine IHRP being the standard is like it's like a CPA standard, whereas SHI would be more like the Association for Internal Auditor, things like that. So that would be the key separation. And you mentioned about all the standards that you guys are creating. I'm well aware of it because I'm also an IHRP SP senior professional. But perhaps for the audience that may not be so familiar with it, could you help to explain exactly how many layer or what's the structure like for your certification program?
Yeah, certainly. I think we the information is on our website. So very quickly, there are four certification levels. We have the certified associates, which for those junior in HR, just starting their HR careers, and in that level, we look out for a knowledge of HR in general. So whether someone has a good enough overview and good enough knowledge of the various HR dimensions, from talent attraction to engagement to the developing of employees, and finally even to in terms of how we manage the exit of employees. So I think, at the lower level, it's a way for those students, even I guess if you are a student that you've graduated with a HR qualification, for instance. What we do is it's a common paper that all students take, so that they can then provide themselves with an understanding of whether some of the learnings that they have had in school is something that prepares them for the workplace. So we also test the legislation, and the regulations. So I think that's something that fresh students who've graduated would find useful, because then they would be able to then present this to prospective employers, to say that they know the law and they know the practice of HR, right? The second certification level is the certified professional. This is the first professional level of certification, and typically we require someone with at least 2 years of experience in HR. The reason we do that is, I think HR is more than just what you read in books, and certainly it's a lot to do also with the experience that you gather on the job. And no two cases are the same, because we're dealing with people. So a lot of our learning takes place on the job, and this is something we measure at the CP level, certified professional level, which is after 2 years, as well as the senior professional level, which is between 8 to 10 years of experience. So what we do, how we measure this, is that we have a two-way of assessment. The first assessment is around your experience. So tell us about your experience. What is it that you have already? What have you done in each of these HR dimensions? And what has that provided in terms of helping you develop competencies in those dimensions, as well as what can you tell us at the senior level in terms of how you have approached things at a more strategic level, right? So this is something that we call it the experience assessment, which is quite important, right? And it's more than just what you read in books. It's what you have already done and what you have demonstrated in your career, right? The second assessment we do is the what we call the competency assessment, and this is at the CP level. Is multiple choice. It's a set of multiple choice questions that are caselets, right? So we present you with a caselet, and then a series of questions related to the caselet. Then you kind of pick the best option that 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 addresses the problem that's being described in the case, right? So for the CP level, it's multiple choice, and for the SP level, it's a short answer format, right? So you do have to provide us with a series of short answers to address the caselet question. So I think in that way, in this two-way of assessment, I think it's more holistic. It provides someone certainly with making sure that that individual has a good grounding, right? But more importantly, how that individual has applied that knowledge in on the job, right? The application of that knowledge. And I think the feedback that we get from people that have taken the IHRP certifications is that they've learned through the process, even if it's just recounting their experience. In our experience assessment, I think the fact that you are reflecting on what you've done in the past, you're committing that on paper, it's also a form of learning, right? And similarly, going through the assessments, certainly I think they feel proud. A lot of them feel proud to have come through at the end. And I think that speaks to the standards that we have, right? We do have some good standards that people then feel that there is a sense of achievement upon being certified. So those are the SCP and then the SP level. And finally, at the very top, we have the master professional level, the MP level. And at that level, I think it's more than just what you know, and certainly I think these are the individuals that are the who's who of the HR world. And it's more around not so much in terms of your HR per se, but in terms of how you work with stakeholders within your organization to extend that influence of HR across the organization at a more strategic level. And then also, how do you engage the HR community, right? What influence, what role model can do we have, right? What are the role models we have out there that the HR professionals can look up to, right? So that's the master level, and that's by invitation, and we do kind of put them through a series of interviews and discussions just to ensure that they come with the right passion and the right mindsets, and certainly they are in a position then to contribute back to the community through IHRP or even beyond IHRP. So those are the four levels.
Thank you so much for the elaboration. And before we deep dive into some of the other questions that I have in mind, maybe I could just help the audience understand what motivated you to be involved in IHRP, knowing that you previously came from a HR background and it's a totally different ballgame for you.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I sometimes I ask myself the same question. But if you look at my background, I did not start in HR. I started in the public sector, and I started in a very relatively young age managing people and large groups of people. And I think that's kind of triggered my interest in HR. And I was fortunate then to take on assignments quite early on in my career within a training and development organization, as well as looking at some of the strategic manpower planning functions for this organization. So it sort of triggered a lot of the interest in HR. And I decided, I wanted then to be a HR professional. Asia was booming at that time, and I also equally wanted to be in a position to participate in the growth of Asian talent. And I think, quite early on in the career, I remember instances where, we had to set up a shop in China, in Shenzhen at that time, from scratch, right? And you go to Shenzhen, and those days you go to Shenzhen through Hong Kong. You take the train from Hong Kong into Shenzhen, and Shenzhen was just a fishing village, right? And on the train, you saw farmers, bringing their live live poultry on the train into Hong Kong to sell. And where would you be able to find talent in a place like Shenzhen at that time? So I think it was a good eye opener for me to be able to kind of look at this, and to say that if this organization needs to deliver on the objectives and to be in China, then we really need to strategically look at how we develop talent. How do we, first of all, initially at least grow, build, provide opportunities for your existing talent to get exposure to some of the emerging markets, and that's something that many Singaporeans, built up their careers on, right? They undertook assignments in some of the emerging economy, in China, in Thailand, in Indonesia. And I think that sort of helped us kind of then at least provide that base to build upon a more sustainable talent pool, developing local talents, right? So I think that was an interesting time for me, because it was a very very fast growth period. Certainly there were challenges as well. SARS comes to mind as one such challenge, and there were recessions along the way, and so we had certainly challenges with respect to how we provide some of the contingency planning, some of the scaling of the operations to keep up with the organizational growth. But I think I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed being in HR, providing that partnership, that leadership on talent to the organizations that I worked for. And I was also fortunate to spend some time with one of the organizations HQ in the US. So I spent 3 years in the US in a business partnering role, which gave me a bit of a different perspective in terms of how large global corporations with a footprint around the world, how they kind of steer a common purpose, a common direction, a common vision, as far as people is concerned. So I think that was quite a valuable experience. And I think probably was very difficult for me to say no when an opportunity came up to manage a business in India for the organization that I was working for. They needed someone to start up their India operations, and I thought, this is a HR guy that not many HR people get an opportunity to do business, so why not? And so I took the challenge. So it was a steep learning curve, but certainly I think it did give me a perspective on managing the business from the other side of the table, to see how do we not just what good HR practices mean for business, right? How do we translate whatever things which we do in HR? At the end of the day, it has to make sense. It has to give value to the business, and I think that perspective was quite useful for me. And after setting up the business in India, and finding my successor, I decided to come back home, and I that by that time I was already away from home, Singapore, for over 10 years. I said, enough. I now need to give back, and I did, continued my HR track, and then the position in the IHRP came along. So Fortunate to be in a position to make that impact for the profession, to give back, if you like, to a profession that has given me so much myself. So much of what I learned is from HR and doing HR. And it's I'm very proud to kind of help build up IHRP to what it is today. And like I said, I think the sky is the limit for HR. I think the potential that we have to influence leaders, to influence organizations, is tremendous. And all it takes is really the will, the credibility, the will, and the competencies to do it. And this is what IHRP is there to do.
Your journey and where you are today definitely made you a role model for many HR out there. And for people who may be keen to emulate your journey to rise to the top and the pinnacle of an organization, what would be some of the key advice you give to them?
I think you kind of look at, certainly it has to start from within yourself, right? It's good understanding of yourself in terms of what you think your purpose in life is about. What what do you think you're good at? What do you think you maybe not so good at, but you want to get better at? I think it has to start from within, and having a good understanding of that gives you a good grounding, a good platform to kind of then project yourself internally, right? And really, I think that's an advice I would give every professional out there, not just in HR. Know yourself first. Get to know, get feedback, get a good understanding, and then decide in terms of the pathway that's right for you. And if you feel your pathway is in terms of being a leader, being at the pinnacle of organizations, then certainly I think you will need to take those baby steps in order to kind of build up your credibility, your ability to you know provide that confidence in yourself as well as in others, that you can deliver at that level. So I think it begins from that perspective. Important is also the network. I talked about the network. You can't do it yourself. Your support, whether it is your personal support within your families, you need the support of your peers, and certainly you need mentors and coaches that can give you that feedback in order for you to succeed. So I don't know, I can't go into specifics because it's a very different path that each of us needs to take. But these are some of the nuggets that I feel, looking back at my career, these are the things that has helped me in getting to where I am today.
And thank you so much for sharing that. I'd like to touch on something which may be a bit controversial. Most recently, maybe about a couple months back, the newspaper actually ran an article. They did a survey on essential workers as well as non essential workers. And HR, as a function, actually came up as one of the top five non essential workers. What's your view on that? What could have been done or presented differently to prevent HR being on the list to begin with exception to killing or bribing the reporter?
Yeah, it was quite a bombshell. I remember it was a Sunday, if I if I'm not wrong. Something just a bomb just landed on us. And but I think maybe taking a step back, and the survey was well intentioned, right? The survey was conducted in order to kind of put the spotlight on some of the underpaid jobs that have really come through for us during the circuit breaker and COVID, right? So it was really to put a spotlight on cleaners, garbage collectors, hawkers, and even people who are out there delivering, putting themselves at risk by delivering, right? Delivering food. And I think put that spotlight to say that are we valuing those jobs. I think that was the main intention of the survey. and I think the objective was to kind of ask people whether they were willing to pay more for such services, right? And I think the feedback came back yes, right? And for good reason, right? And certainly, I think a lot of jobs we feel today are underappreciated, underpaid, and I think we need to kind of, as a profession, also make a stand on that too, right? But on the on the other side, an unintended consequence of doing the same survey is that while garbage collectors, hawkers, delivery men were shown up as essential. On the other end, artists, telemarketers, social media managers, Adrian, business consultants, and HR. These were kind of some of the jobs that were showed up as non-essential. But I think the research company went on to explain, right? Because there was a hoo-ha, understandably, and no one likes to be have their job described as non-essential. Certainly not when HR was working so hard. But the way they described it, I thought, yes, that's why context is so important. And so if you ask the question around low wage essential workers, and that's how you define essential workers. If you define essential workers as people who are engaged in work deemed necessary for basic human survival and well-being, which was how it was defined, then certainly yes. In order to survive, I don't think I can survive without my garbage collected. I can't survive without my food on my table that I will need to have delivered. But do I really need other things to survive? Maybe not. So I think that's kind of that was the context. So I yeah there the this research company and the Sunday Times, the commission did to kind of put things in perspective, and I'm glad they did, because the social media, as you know, was alive with buzz, right, as a result, and not just from HR, from the artist profession as well, because what we do is critical, right? It may not be life and death, but it's certainly critical for the pursuit of happiness, and certainly for stability of our society. And I think nothing that takes that away. Certainly not a survey, and we don't need a survey to put us down, right? I think we are bigger than that. So that's kind of my take on this. But what do you think as well?
Well, I think as with all things, there's definitely, like what they say, if you see a smoke, most likely there's a fire, and most likely
Yeah,
this has been manifesting for quite some time.
yeah,
But having said that, I do think that times have changed, things have evolved tremendously, especially with the creation of an organization like IHRP, which is your key mission is to elevate HR profession into another level.
mm,
So I think even though this has created quite a lot of hoo-ha, but I guess on the flip side, it has shown a very strong spotlight on IHRP and really help people to understand more about the initiative that you're doing and how they can be involved in it. Because based on a recent mention by Zaki Muhammad, it said that there's 47,000 HR professionals,
yes,
and I think many of them has yet to be involved with IHRP in a meaningful way.
yeah,
So I think this may be the key catalyst for those people who has been sitting on the fence, deciding whether they should pursue this or not, to really start taking decision, start making an action, and really be involved and be part of this certifying body.
yeah. I think we have sort of come to the forefront, and I guess what we take away from this crisis. Anyway, we're not out of the crisis yet, but I think what we when we look at the challenges that all societies are going through, the existential challenge with respect to the health crisis that is still with us, that crisis precipitating the economic crisis, right, and the devastating impact on jobs and skills as a result. Certainly, I think it's a lot of concern, right, and HR professionals, wherever they are, right, I think you have a big part. You will have a very big, major role to play in all aspects of managing this crisis. So I think it's a call to action, if you like. We are fortunate in Singapore that we have the government, and not just the government, the tripartite partners firmly behind the profession, right? That we are here to support each other, right? And that's always been the Singapore way, right? It's not we've never believed that it's always contentious, right? Because in Singapore we've always had we needed to be practical. We needed to, being a small place with a limited amount of resources, we really needed to be practical in terms of how we go about doing things. And I think that's a strength that that also is part of HR, right? And if you talk to HR professionals, we are all very practical people. We are the people that straddle between management and employees. So we have to provide that glue, if you like, the social glue, the economic glue, even to make sure that people work together. In good times as well as in bad times, right? So I think we have a lot to offer as a profession. So I'm just uh, grateful, really, that we have this ecosystem in Singapore, right? That allows us to do that. Whether or not we have 47,000 HR professionals, I think it will be certainly an effort to ensure that every HR professional out there is well equipped. But it's something that is a challenge that IHRP is very happy to take on. Certification is just one part. It's also how can we help provide some of the baby steps. And it may not be certification, because people may feel, oh, I'm not ready, right? I'm not ready for this assessment, this exam. Then just think of a skill badge. If you're passionate about, say, analytics, you're passionate about organizational change because you've done a project, and you did it well, right? And you want to be recognized for that, then it could be a skill badge as well. And we have skill badges available for you to kind of also take on and prove yourself. So so I think it's how do we bring the community together, and it's partnerships. I think I'm always an advocate for partnerships, and we right from the very start, we had strategic partnerships signed with CIPD, SHRM in the US, and RE in Australia. And I think those partnerships are quite important for us, right? Because through those partnerships, I think then we can leverage on each other to provide the best products and services to the profession. Right? We don't have to do everything ourselves. So I think we are in a good position here in Singapore to do great things, and just want to kind of be in a position to make things happen, right? I think that's kind of where sometimes ideas are good. Having the vision and having the creativity to have those ideas is critical, but it's also execution. And in Singapore we deliver. If you talk to a lot of international companies, international managers, and say, okay, Singapore managers, what's different uh, between Singapore managers and other managers? Oh, we deliver. We do what we say, and we say what we do, right? And I think that's the Singapore way, and this is IHRP is an opportunity for the HR profession to show how HR can stand out in the Singapore way.
I truly like the way you put it. It's like for many decades, Singapore has always been seen as the practical, the pragmatic, the non corruptible country. And of course, the people would automatically get tagged along as well. So putting that practice onto HR professional to really present themselves differently definitely would make a good differentiation, a unique selling proposition for many organizations. I'd like to touch on something new. Most recently, it was announced in an event about a HR industry transformation playbook that IHRP will be involved in. And I'm very certain there'll be a lot more other involvement. And these are things which are still in development, if I'm not wrong. Could you shed some light on this? What exactly is this all about? And what other new stuff is IHRP working on this year?
Yeah. Adrian, are you a fan of American football?
I do know a little bit, but not exactly a fan. I'm still trying to work out the rules.
Yeah, it's an interesting game, and those of us who sort of grew up with English football, soccer, if you like, sometimes we find it difficult to appreciate the American way of doing things. But certainly, I think playbook comes from primarily from American football, and it's literally a set of books. It's a book of plays, right? That the coaches kind of design in order to kind of score, in order to kind of get better at against the opponent, right? It's a series of combinations. It's a series of sequences in order to kind of ensure that you score a touchdown, right? So when we looked at the challenges that HR professionals, particularly in smaller companies in Singapore, have, typically, a smaller company, smaller organization in Singapore may not even have a full time HR. They could be doing HR with other things, right? Admin, corporate type of work, or even if there was a HR department, it would be a small department, right? Maybe one or two people, and your colleague would just be doing payroll, right? Would be very busy doing payroll, and then it's just you, right? So a lot of these companies then would struggle, right? Because they would not really have the means, the resources, in order to kind of advocate for progressive practices, right? So what practices work for me? Oh, I've heard that performance management is on the way out. Annual performance appraisal is on the way out. Maybe I should be looking at something else, but I'm just a small company, and for me, how do I convince my boss? How do I? So there is a lot of challenge, and what I would as a last mile challenge, right? I think HR professionals know very well because we are fairly well exposed on social media. We are well exposed in terms of good things. I think government does a fantastic job in Skills Future. So a lot of our HR professionals do attend courses. They do know some of the more progressive things that are possible to do, including HR tech. But why is it, Adrian, that the adoption of some of these practices does not happen so easily? So perhaps this is where we think a set of playbooks, a way to present a series of plays depending on your situation, right? That means it's contextualized to your situation. So, for example, let me give you an example. You're in the finance sector, right? You're small operation within the finance sector doing insurance products, right? Small company, say an insurance broker, right? And the broking business is going to be disrupted big time, right? With tech, with some of the tech platforms, fintech. So you need to transform, right? But but for you to transform, is it just about digitization? Is it just about doing looking at some of the pivoting into a new line of business? And if I do that, what does it? Is it just putting in a system, just buying a technology, putting it in, and everything will be okay? No, you need to build that buy-in, right, in employees. You need to upskill employees. You need to provide opportunities for them to accept the changes that are going to take place, and have the right mindsets in order for them to upskill. And that takes effort, right? It takes, and if you're a small company with one or two HR people, without the resources, how are you going to even start having those discussions with your leadership? So it seems very daunting. So with playbooks, it's it's going to be customized for the finance sector, to say, okay, these are some of the business challenges in the finance sector. So if digitization is something that your organization is going through, so what are the top 3 or 4 things that you need to do in HR in order to best prepare your organization for the digitization that is coming up? What do you need to change as far as hiring talent is concerned, right? Do you need new skills, which you will not have the luxury of time to build internally, which you need to buy, right? You need to buy those skills. And then what are those skills, and how do I then go out and look for those skills? Because I've never hired these people before. Where do I go and find them, right? The people with the analytic skills, the people with the ability to match your technology challenges. On the other hand, there's also a need to kind of make sure that you build skills, right? And what do you do with your existing workforce? What are the adjacent skills? What are the skills they already have? How can you kind of build a new scope for them, so that they feel that, yeah, they're part of this journey, right? So a lot of these things are last mile challenges, which I think if we provide guides, and more than just guides, I think guides are something that we already have, but we need to kind of customize it, localize it, and make it very specific to the sector. And guess what, Adrian? We have the community. We have enough HR professionals in finance, those who are doing great things, that are telling us that they want to help. They want to help these smaller companies because they have gone through the learnings. They know what works, and they are willing to then curate, articulate some of these learnings into place, right? So that, these can be something that very easily can be adopted by some of the people that are struggling today, right? So I think that's kind of the mindset now we're trying to build for the community, that the haves need to lend a helping hand to the have-nots. And the playbook is going to be certainly one of the opportunities that we have in order to do that. We need an orchestrator, if you like. We need a platform, and IHRP is happy to be that platform, to bring the needs to the table. So what are the needs out there? Which are the sectors? We think there are 2 sectors that we want to start with. I talked about finance, and the other one would be food services. So we then bring those needs. We work with the trade associations. We'll work with the government agencies like MAS and even EDB and ESG, to kind of sort of say, so what are the challenges? What are the needs? What are the business challenges? And then work on some critical areas where HR can help. So I talked about digitization. I think digitization and automation is one of the playbooks that we are working on. The other playbook is going to be around talent. How do we develop a strong core of local talent for many of these sectors, right? That's another play. It's not going to be overnight. There has to be a concerted effort, right, from all the ecosystem in order to support some of these smaller companies. And certainly I think there's enough will out there. I think if you look at how we have responded, how the government has responded on COVID, there's certainly a lot of support given to companies in order to help companies transform. And certainly I think we are going to try to tap into that passion, tap into that energy, to see how we can help some of these smaller companies to get better, to get better in terms of their HR processes. So this is just one of the aspects that we're looking at. In addition, I think there are other things around. Companies need to understand what they are doing first, right? You have many processes going on. I think in HR, your life cycle. You look at the employee life cycle. There are many things that we do, and are you really optimizing those processes? Are you benchmarking yourself with similar companies in the same industry, perhaps, right? If you're not, then I think you're also kind of a little bit shooting in the dark, right? So we have a diagnostic tool. We've had it for already a year, and something like about 100 over companies have already done it, and very good feedback, because I think the diagnostic tool helps them benchmark themselves in terms of their practices, in terms of, so where do I stand, right? Am I really doing as well as I should be doing, say, when it comes to engaging my employees, or should I be looking at doing more, right? So we have an external assessor that comes into your company, looks at your processes, tries to understand your business challenges, and tries to then provide you with that insight in terms of the top 3 4 things that you need to do. And that's immensely useful for companies, immensely useful for HR professionals to get that insight. So that's another opportunity that IHRP is working with the ecosystem. Some of our assessors are private consultants that are trained by us, and they want to help. They want to help some of these smaller companies, and so we have a group of consultants that we work with on HCDT, the diagnostic tool, and similarly we will have consultants and training providers out there that will work with us on implementing the playbooks. So it's all about partnerships, right? It's all about IHRP. Yes, we will provide a platform, we will have the community there, but at the end of the day, whether we see adoption, whether we are able to reach the 47,000 depends on how strong we will be in partnerships. So I think give you that perspective, and I don't know whether Adrian, from your position, being in from an outside in looking into the profession, do you think this is something that is workable? It's something that we need, and are we on the right track? What do you think, Adrian?
Definitely. In fact, when I first got to know about what IHRP intend to do, it was during the earlier days when it was still known as the National HR Framework, which
Yeah.
was really many years ago. Everyone was very excited, including myself, knowing what is going to happen and knowing that Singapore is going to spearhead and be the leader in trying to create a certifying standard. But and going beyond that, the involvement that IHRP has been with different ministry, with different tripartite partners, again, all trying to tackle different and unique situation, because knowing that you have 47,000 people, but they all don't work and operate the same way. Some people may be heavier in administration, someone may be heavier in payroll, some of them may be strategic, and each of them would have a unique challenge that they need help to resolve. And I'm very certain with what IHRP is doing and continue to do, and with all these new measures and new initiatives being rolled out, you are definitely heading in the right direction. But it does sound like a very heavy and bigger plate for you. Would you be hiring any more people to add on to your team?
We always on the lookout for talents, Adrian. I think it's a great vantage point, if you ask me, as a HR professional myself, and we do look out for HR talents. Joining IHRP gives you a great vantage point, because you have an overview in terms of some of the national issues around workforce, around workplace, more and more around workplace, with the challenges with the pandemic. So it's a great vantage point. It's a great place for talents who are passionate about HR, who are passionate about making a difference in HR to be at, right? And we have a great team as well. Not to say my own team, but I'm equally referring to the community out there, because The way we work, just to give you an insight, Adrian, is we work through a number of committees, right? So we have one committee that helps us understand professional practices in terms of making sure that we have a good appreciation of what good practices are, what are the trends, how those practices need to evolve. So that's the Professional Practices Committee, and that's held by currently Eileen Tan, CHRO of Singtel. We also have an Assessments Committee, and that Assessments Committee helps us regulate, govern our assessments, making sure that we maintain those high standards that I talked about, as well as when we come up with new assessment products. For example, we talk about skill badges, and equally, I think there are going to be more alternative pathways to certification. It cannot just be one single pathway. I think we're diverse enough as a HR community to open up alternative pathways towards certification, right? So I think this committee also helps us to do that. And we have a digital committee that when we talk about challenges around digitization the companies go through, so we have the very experienced people in the digital world, people from IMDA, people from the consulting community that's helping us understand the challenges that digitization brings to organizations. And finally, we have the engagement and outreach committee. And the reason I mention these committees is that each of these committees is comprised of talents, very passionate people with many years of experience in HR as well as outside HR, but equally are willing to contribute to HR. And that's why they volunteered for these committees. And when we interact with the committees, we learn, right? We learn as well, and I think that's really fabulous. So even if you don't join us, do volunteer for some of these committees. Do we're always on the lookout for. There's always task forces that we are forming. Currently, we have one task force that we formed to look at some of the newer competencies because we are refreshing our body of competency. We have another task force that we formed that's looking at some of the resilience type of expectations for HR. How can HR help organizations be more resilient? So we have many task forces, and through those task forces is an opportunity to learn. So even if you happy in your organization but you want to give back, you want to give back to the community, do let us know. Do come forward, let us know. I think Adrian, we've picked your brains a few times as well, and thank you so much for helping us on some of the webinars. I think that's another opportunity where we do get people together that brings that perspective from the practitioner point of view, which I think is very important, particularly at this time.
You're most welcome. And for people who are interested to find out more about IHRP, to know how they can be involved or even to be certified, where can they go to?
Oh, go to our website. I think there's one mecca for you. So go to our website. There's enough information around which certification level is appropriate for you. Do that self-assessment, and certainly I think now is as good a time as any. In fact, I'm going to make it even better. So just for your listeners, Adrian, I'm going to give a $30 off the assessment fee. All they need to do is to go to our website, sign up for certification, put in the promo code, which it's called Adrian Tan 30. That means it's one word, Adrian Tan 30. Just put in that promo code and you get $30 off. How do you like that, Adrian?
Awesome. Thank you so much. On behalf of all my listeners, thank you so much for offering that. So again, you'll be Agent Tan 30. Just
Yes.
enter that in when you are at the certification page to go through the assessment, and you automatically be given $30 off. All
Right.
the links that we have mentioned earlier on will be added into the show notes for your convenience. And I had a wonderful time today, Mayank, going through this conversation with you. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you, Adrian, for having me, and continue to do the great things that you're doing for the community. I really love the way you reach out, the opportunities that we have really depend on the community, on people like you making a difference out there. So thank you for all your efforts, Adrian.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. You can refer to the show notes for links to more information about our guests and their businesses. If you enjoy this podcast, it will be helpful to give a review on iTunes or follow me on Spotify. If you're using Overcast, please hit the star button under the episode. That will help get this podcast and the episodes out to more people who may find it useful. I will see you in the next episode of The Adrian Tan Show.